What's up, everybody? It's me, the one and only, your boy who takes weeks and weeks off from Pod Strickland, here where I belong the most, Draft Strickland, the best Knicks draft pod that you'll find out of all three Knicks draft pods that I've heard of. Just kidding. Chris, I love you. Knicks Film School, draft film class. Shout out to Chris Persianen. Um, it's March Madness time. Or yeah, today's actually March. I'm sorry. This has been a very hectic last week for me at work. So I didn't even realize today was March. It's officially March Madness time. I don't have my predictions yet, but I am paying attention to a lot of prospects. It's a weird time in the world of the NBA draft. It feels like lots and lots of guys are kind of we're at the point where it's like the slog of the college season. There's players whose flaws are being exposed and they've been discussed in circles and circles and circles, and now everybody's suspicious and wondering about things. And the Knicks are, as we speak, whooping the ass of the Brooklyn Nets, and apparently they're never going to lose again. So I don't even know if we'll have a pick short of the 25th at this rate. So I'm going to have to adjust who I expect to even be on this team if we pick anybody from this draft, because as always, there's the possibility of trading out like we did last year. So to help me navigate one particular realm of draft prospect, the realm which you may have heard of, the ACC, I have none other than Brian, who's been on this pod before. Brian, what's your handle again? I should have it written down, but I forgot. I think you're on mute.
Off to a an incredible start. Yeah, at bgeis_bird. I can I'll change my
Yeah,
I'll fill it in here and we'll
boom.
add to the screen here. But yeah, at bgeis underscore bird. It's a weird handle. I made it when I was in college. I didn't really know what Twitter was going to be. And now I kind of like it, so I'm rolling with it. But yeah, it's hard to believe it's March. I was at the Duke State game last night to see Duke finish off an undefeated home record this year against capping it off against NC State and Traquavion Smith. And ACC tournament right around the corner, and obviously March Madness not too far after that. I've really enjoyed this season, even though it's been kind of weird for the ACC, which is to say hasn't been maybe the best year in the league. But I'm also like, I don't know about you, but this has definitely shifted in the last couple of years, where April through June, I think, has become my favorite time of the basketball calendar because the playoffs start. Like college is over, but there's still a lot of like tape to go through, and you have time to do it leading up to the draft, so you can catch up on overtime elite, you catch up on G League, catch up on college prospects you haven't seen, and I'm so like in deep with the ACC that I really like having that time to catch up on prospects that maybe you've only seen two or three games of so far this season that are outside of the league. And it's just nice to have like less live inventory going on. Plus, the playoffs are happening, and like that's just like the best part of sports, the NBA playoffs. So I don't know how you feel about that, but I'm kind of ready to get to early April here now.
I totally get that, and for those of you who don't know, Brian, like he alluded to, does focus on and spend a ton of time on the ACC. You'll see great stuff written for the official ACC sports account from him. I'm sure there's a zillion other sites that he writes for on the ACC, on the Hornets, on other NBA and college players. There's some really good detailed stuff. So if you don't follow Brian on Twitter, please do. And yeah, I mean, it makes sense, right? Like if your focus, it's like with me and the Knicks. Like I wish I had more time to watch other teams, and I'll still try to. Like my Pod Strickland co-host Schwinn is a maniac, and he consistently finds time to watch other teams he likes, like the Kings and the Warriors and stuff. And I'm just like, yo, I'm too old and washed up to do that shit, right? I'll do it on the weekend. I might be bored in the morning and like replay a game that was part like I replayed part of that insane
Kings Clippers game from last week.
Yeah, where the total score was like 1,000 or whatever.
That game was happening while I was trying to like finish up like like Miami versus Clemson film, and I was like, what am I doing? Like, why am I? I'm like, trying to trudge through like a 70-65 ACC game while the Malik Monk's going for 45, and it's like, ooh, I'm maybe making a poor choice here, but I really care about covering the league. I try to scout prospects from the league as much as possible, but I try to be pretty in depth with like mapping playbooks with teams in the league as much as possible. So every season I watch every Duke game and I clip every Duke game. I clip every State game. I clip every Virginia game. And I do probably most Wake Forest, most UNC, a lot of Virginia Tech, and depending on who else is good, whether it be Pittsburgh, Miami, Clemson this year, but Notre Dame previous years or Louisville. And I basically try to like map out everyone's playbook throughout the course of the season, which is like a labor of love. So yes, I will be looking forward to like watching NBA playoff basketball where it's just like on, and I'm not taking notes furiously to like timestamp stuff so I can go back and and clip the highlight or whatever. So but if you like ACC coverage, I've been covering Virginia this season for Streaking the Lawn, which is the SB Nation site. And I've been doing a lot of stuff at 24/7 Sports with Duke, NC State, and Wake Forest.
Speaking of Wake Forest, I have to start our substantive discussion with a very important question for me and longtime Draft Strickland listeners who foolishly heed my every advice and whim. Why has the NBA conspired to not allow my son Alondes Williams to flourish on a real roster? He's right now wasting away in Long Island. I would not wish that on my worst enemy. Damn, he can't get on the rebuilding Brooklyn Net. They got one person who could dribble the ball.
He's got to get a call up before the end of the season, man. Like, what are we doing? Look, this is a conspiracy that clearly runs all the way up to the tops of the very tops of the NBA. And yeah, we got to get like Alondes is a 6'5" bulldozer that gets to the rim whenever he wants to. Like there's about to be some Garbo basketball here down the stretch. Like the final month of the NBA regular season, it's maybe not as like pronounced as it was a couple of years ago once they like flattened out lottery odds, but like we're about to get to some silly games here between some bad teams for the playoff start too. So like, yeah, can we get Alondes? Let's get some spread pick and roll for Alondes Williams against an NBA defense. I'd love to see it.
This would never happen in David Stern's NBA. That's all I'm gonna say. As usual, Alondes Williams, jokes aside, I mean, we'll see what happens, but inevitably there's just like I gotta be a little more strict with myself about older prospects. That's just what always fucking happens every year. Like I'm just like, there's always some ball handling 22-year-old or 23-year-old who makes me fucking have like starry anime eyes at their handle, and then I'm like, oh yeah, most 22-year-olds in the NBA could probably do that versus other college players.
Yeah, I do think, and this is maybe something to pay attention to a little bit more with Wake going forward. I know Tyree Appleby's not like a real prospect necessarily for them, especially because like he's a really old. I mean, if he was like 19 doing this stuff, it'd be one thing. But Wake is consistently like a top 20, top 25 offense now. It's a really creative team offensively, and so just like look, I think what Alondes was doing was like legit. I don't think it was like necessarily inflated by the system, but like the context was good for him last year too. Do you know what I mean? As far as like he was in a great spot.
Great system, great with Jake and the coach, and they had
it's a really good staff, and they're really creative offensively, and they just did great. They empowered Jake and Alondes and put like the right pieces around those guys for them to really like excel last season.
Nice. I just realized I fucking didn't set my fantasy basketball roster. Good thing the playoffs begin next week. It's okay. It's okay. I have games in the standings to spare. I'm tied for first. Anyway, all right, cool. So there's a couple of ACC guys. None of them are Wake Forest.
No,
Who
no.
I'm interested in this year.
But Bobby Clinton next year, maybe. We'll talk. We'll be
Yeah,
talking. We'll talk. 12 months from now, we'll be talking about Bobby Clinton.
yeah, dude. I've heard about him for a while. He's like been
Yeah,
on the
he's
radar.
good. Yeah.
Um, come for the Duke. Stay for
The Wake talk.
stay for the Wake.
The Deeks.
Yeah. The first guy I want to talk about. Well, I didn't see this is actually perfect because I forgot Duke was playing State yesterday. So three guys from that game: Derek Whitehead, Kyle Filipowski, known affectionately as Flip, and Terquavion Smith, known affectionately, at least to me, as Turk. And all three of those guys have been, I think, from early on in the season, even when the Knicks were like blowing games in the last 5 minutes and shit like that, we kind of knew we would be somewhere between like 13 to 17. Like it was clear that we weren't going to be in like the Wemby sweepstakes, but we had enough talent that should we stop fucking blowing leads, we'd be like in the middle of the first. And now with these guys in like God mode or whatever, like, now you're looking at a pick. Well, we don't even have our own pick. I shouldn't say that. We have Dallas's pick, so that shit might end up being in the teens for all I know. They're playing fucking Reggie Bullock at the 4. Who knows what's going on there? So yeah, it's a bold strategy. We'll see if it works for them. Anyway, I bring that all up because Derek, Flip, and Turk seem to have throughout the season vacillated. Derek started out as like a top 10 guy. Turk started out as a lotto guy, maybe some top 10s, and like a lot of other players, this isn't unique to them. Like there's other guys who inevitably rise every year and some guys who fall a little bit, and they've felt, Derek in particular, he's had some struggles, some with injury. We can get into how much is injury, how much is not, but like the three of them are in the Knicks range, give or take. All three of them have been mocked to the Knicks at one point or another. So I know people who are listening to this have probably, it might not be their first time hearing about these guys. But before we get into the particulars, like how was the game?
The game was really like the Duke State game was fun last night. It was a good crowd. Like everyone there knew they were going for like the undefeated home record this year. It was the 19th time Duke's done that. John Shire did it in year one, replacing Krzyzewski, but good crowd. And I don't know how much we're gonna like talk about these guys, but it was a big game for Derek Lively, who's like really played strong down the stretch for Duke. And he didn't have a great shooting game, but Tyrese Proctor, was really good defensively against Terquavion Smith, and Proctor's been pretty awesome the last 6-8 weeks for the Blue Devils too. But game was fun. Duke is very kind to credential me for them, so I've been lucky for the last few years to get to see Jason Tatum up close. I was there for the Zion Williamson show with RJ and Cam Reddish. I was there for Wendell Carter Jr., Marvin Bagley year, and getting to be up close with Paolo Banchero, Trevor Keels, another Knicks legend in the making, and AJ Griffin last year was really, really cool, and Mark Williams too, who's now playing on the Hornets team I cover. So Duke is very cool to do that, to let me in the door there, and yeah, I don't take it for granted. Like I know it's like everyone makes fun of, everyone like takes shots at Duke or whatever, but everyone who works there is really nice. It's like in Palo up close, especially, is like, it's pretty cool, especially seeing how those guys have sort of taken off on the next level too.
They don't make you come in and like pledge fealty to JJ Redick or something.
They do not. They do not. They do not. Thankfully, we are spared that.
Nice. Although I will say I'm not gonna lie. I like JJ Redick's career turn into
He's cool now, man. He's cool.
not only he's cool, but like I actually learned stuff listening to him, which is not true of pretty much most other NBA announcers.
He also does a good job of, and shout out to him for doing this. Like he will shine light. Like he does sort of send the ladder down a little bit. He's got a platform with his own podcast and at ESPN, and obviously like connected to like the Duke Mafia, which is like one of the 5 families of basketball. And like he still, I don't know, like he still tries to help, share stuff. It doesn't just like sort of like swipe people's ideas for his own. So I kind of respect that. And yeah, like he's like a good he's a very good and knowledgeable basketball mind. I saw him at several Duke games last season. Actually, I don't think he's been at any this year though.
He's got too many side hustles now.
Yeah, he really does.
So I don't blame him. We could start and talk about who you mentioned, Derek Lively. He's interesting because he came in as an extremely high recruit. Depending on what recruiting service, maybe number 1, maybe top 5.
Yeah.
And early on, he he's not the type he's not scoring a lot at Duke, right? He's not he's not doing Paolo Banchero stuff or even Wendell Carter stuff. And Duke's offense is definitely not set up around getting him the ball, aside from the occasional lob pass and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a mix of like, is he not being assertive? How much of it is him? How much of it is the situation? How much is it that he's just really young and there's other very good players on the team like Flip who you can give the ball to and they can get you a bucket?
Mm-hmm.
How much of that is Duke's guard situation kind of taking some time to iron itself out a little bit, some injuries and stuff like that? But it seems like for a while, Lively, who's, for people who don't know, he's like 7'1". His wingspan is 7'8", which is crazy. And for comparison, Mitchell Robinson's wingspan is 7'4". So yeah, his wingspan is like comically long.
Yeah.
I want to see what his standing reach is because he does seem to be like a narrow kind of dude. But I'm sure it's still fucking whatever longer than.
He's not as like hulking as like Mark Williams. Like I got to see both those guys up close at Duke each of the last 2 seasons, and Lively is like impossibly tall and long, but like Williams was sort of just like I mean, he set the record for standing reach at the combine and definitely gave off sort of more of like a true center. In terms of his wingspan, and
you could drop him in like 1999 and he'd probably be fine.
100%. Yeah. So like as far as like Lively goes, like he got hurt right before the start of the season, so he was trying to come back from that. Duke's guard play was like not where you would probably want it to be at the start of the year, and that probably could have been predictable. Like they have a veteran guard in Jeremy Roach who's good and is playing well now, but Roach is like he's like a good college guard, you know what I mean? And he's not like a pure breakdown guard, nor is he like a pure like table setter. And Tyrese Proctor was, really took some time. I think he's really hit a stride now, but he's not a guy that generates a ton of rim pressure. Is another like pure like breakdown guard, and those guys were having trouble, I think, sort of like setting Lively up. Even though I think they were like looking for him, it just wasn't really there. There was one game against Boston College in Durham, like in early December. I think it was their first conference game, I think it was, where they started to empty the corner out and throw lobs to Lively. And that was the first game where you're like, okay, this is the blueprint for it. Like this is it. And he got probably 5 or 6 lobs in that game, all with the corner empty, like all empty side ball screen action, and Boston College had nothing for it. And I just think ultimately there was this like dissonance between, as you sort of laid out, the fact that he was the number one prospect according to some recruiting services. I think people expected him to come in and be like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. You know what I mean? And it was like, this guy isn't that. I mean, he is in a lot of ways, though. He is a really nice, like, modern five because he does all of the dirty work. He's an elite rim protector. He's really versatile guarding the pick and roll. He's not looking for the ball on offense except for when he dives or is in the dunker spot. He's pretty good at setting screens. And even last night against State, you could see him kind of like angling his screens a little bit to help Roach and Proctor get downhill against State's ice coverage and help those guys get to the middle of the floor. I thought that he was doing a nice job of that. I will say this: when Lively was struggling and when he was having a guy like Ryan Young, who's like a decent college center, playing over him at times early in the season, it didn't affect his play or like his spirit, I guess I should say. Like he is constantly in communication when he's on the court, when he's on the bench. This is a guy that, if you care about this stuff, which I think it has some value, like he like publicly, he was always in good spirits. Do you know what I mean? Like supporting his teammates. And again, like he's got the mentality from a communication standpoint to be an anchor. Like he is calling stuff out in a way that I do think is notable compared to other Duke rim protectors that I've seen come through there in recent years, including Mark Williams.
Notable for his age, because he's a freshman, but he's a young freshman.
And again, I'm telling you, he talks like my credentialed spot there is like pretty close to the goal that that is like across from the opposing bench. So I've seen Lively up close a lot this season. You talked about his length. He moves. He's like a really smooth mover. Like laterally, he can switch out and guard. And he's incredibly quick off his feet, first and second jump. Like he has that kind of quick twitch ability to get into the air. And his I think he's up to 5 blocks per 40 minutes this season, 13% block rate. And that's that is improved. Like even as the competition has gotten better, like he's been blocking shots on a more frequent basis. And I actually asked John Shire about this after the game last night, like the scheme versatility that he's offering Duke. It has been interesting. They've used him every way so far this year. Often he's playing up at the level, but they have used him to switch out. They have played him in drop. They've had him hedge. They've had him blitz. And even last night against NC State, where they've got some dangerous pull-up shooters at the guard spots, including Jaquavion and Jarkel Joyner, he was he was playing to the level, but kind of not quite like a full hedge, but kind of like sticking with them like for one more dribble to sort of like maybe just swing or hang in tough against. And so just like on the next level, like Lively's gonna have to probably get like stronger if he wants to be a guy that can like play drop. I mean, he's got I think he's got the height and the reach to do it, but I think that scheme versatility that he's offering, along with the rim protection, along with the communication, and the fact that he's just willing to do the dirty work on offense, I think he's going to be like a really solid NBA center for a long time. I'm not saying this guy, I'm not advocating get this guy back into the lottery or something like that.
Get this guy in the Garden. That's what
but I just think I think he's going to be I think his floor, because he can be a good defensive center. They can really go up and catch lobs. He just offers a discrete set of skills that's valuable at his position.
Yeah, that's super fascinating to hear about his usage, because I'm not gonna lie, there's some people on the internet who do amateur draft stuff and write draft stuff who are looking to make this their career, and I salute these individuals. I'm not those people. I'm lazy with less time, so what I do is it's always the very end of my draft cycle when I dedicate time to explicitly watch defense a lot. Like if I'm watching a full game and giving it my all, and I'm watching it specifically for one player like Lively, then I'll obviously watch him on both ends. But for me to check different games to see if the schemes are different and how a guy gets used versus different opponents, that happens. But that happens before the draft for me. That happens after March Madness, certainly. So I just haven't gone that deep on his defense, other than seems to be getting a lot of blocks, and Duke's defense seems to be good.
Yeah.
And that scheme versatility is just really notable. I mean, earlier in the season, Knicks fans griped a lot because Tibbs, at least with this Knicks team and the last few iterations of it, he doesn't really give a shit about scheme versatility. Although
I love
he's
Tibbs, man. Like from afar, he's just so amusing for these reasons, you know.
he really is like a mad scientist. And he
Yeah.
to his credit, he finally has like tweak. He's like, so the Knicks have, they have Mitch, and then they have Hartenstein, and they have Sims, all who are
Yeah.
different kinds of centers physically and in terms of their gifts and all that. And he's they're still mostly in traditional drop coverage, but like he'll let Sims isn't playing right now, but back when Mitch was hurt, Sims would fly up a little bit more and call a few more audibles, and Hart wouldn't be as deep a drop, which for the Knicks counts as like scheme versatility. But we sometimes wonder as Knicks fans, like, man, if we weren't so dedicated to just drop and rim protection, like what could someone like Sims, who really can move his feet on the perimeter
Yeah.
and is probably
Yeah.
better at that than he is at rim protection at this stage, what could they do? So like
Yeah. Yeah.
but that's the thing. Sims is somebody with an 8'10" standing reach. That's the same as Cam Reddish and a little bit longer than guys like
Yep.
RJ Barrett. It is not the guys with Derek Lively, Mitch Robinson type measurements who are flying around. Although I should say young Mitch did fly around like that.
Yeah.
I mean, Tibbs didn't let him do it a lot, but when he called his own number on defense, he would definitely get out there and block 3-pointers and stuff like that. So I guess it's not unheard of, but it's just he just seems like such a bulletproof prospect because of, like, it's not just, oh, he's long and you're praying he'll get it in the NBA on
Yeah.
defense. Like,
Yeah.
he's demonstrating he can do job, he can switch, and the communication stuff, that is that, like, if the Knicks were looking for a center, like, that would be music to
Yeah.
their ears, because all they care about is like guys who can come in and not fuck around and just execute, and that seems like what Shire has him doing. And then you add on top of that, like, forget the offense. Forget the fact that Prez, in my like armchair, whatever shooting analysis, thinks that if they let him shoot, he could make the shots. He
Yeah.
can rebound.
Yeah.
Like, he's a legit rebounder.
Yes, he
10%
is.
offensive rebounds, gets steals and deflections and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And is also a sneaky good passer. Like,
Yeah, his short roll passing has been like it's not incredible, right? It's not like you're watching Xavier Tillman short roll passing for the 2020 draft, but like it's like enough to like keep the gears moving on offense, you know? Like he's made some nice passes in the short roll, like simple stuff, like catches it in the pocket, kick out to the weak side shooter or drop off to flip in the dunker spot for a finish. But it's like he can kind of do it.
that goes
And
really far.
yeah, it does. No, it's huge. It means he's like maybe more playable. You know what I mean? To like you might be able to play this guy down the stretch of some games. And like, we'll see where the jumper comes. Like it's something he's shown the ability to do in like off-season stuff and practices or whatever, but he missed another three badly last night, 1 for 12. At least it's something that's like a possibility, right? It's like
Right.
I don't know if I like would bet or bank on the shot, but it doesn't really matter because like he's already given you the like this discrete set of skills that has proven value. So it's like
It's like Walker Kessler.
Yeah,
Walker Kessler shot a lot in high school
Yeah.
and in college, and he's
Yeah.
not shooting at all, but nobody cares because he's
Nobody
an
cares.
awesome defensive center.
Yeah, and I just think Lively, like I just think he has the ability just to like he'll never be a star, but can just like start in the NBA for a long time. Because of again exactly what he's giving you on both sides of the court, and like he doesn't need the ball to be willing to set screens either, right? Like there's some centers, and I mean I guess I kind of get it that they're like they want to feel the ball. They want like a couple of like token post ups per game. Lively doesn't care. Like in fact, he's fine without that. So
some young centers, especially skinny ones, just don't know how to do. Like Mitch,
Yeah.
Mitch started setting screens for the first time last year, and he was great at defense and great at dunking and stuff like that. He just was terrible at setting screens until the end of last year. Like for a player like after the Mitch experience, and I love Mitch, he's getting 17 million a year and is worth way more than that. But like now, when I check center prospects, I'm like, are they making contact here? Or how much are they slipping?
Yeah.
Like, are they switching the angles up? Like, what kind of screen craft are we talking here? And real quick, before I forget, to just put a finer point on it, a while back, at the beginning of February, I don't know if these numbers still hold up, but I did a Bart Torvik search, which is, for people who don't know, that's like this website that has lots of college individual and team analytics and stats, and you can do all sorts of fun searches and queries and stuff. And I was looking for guys who played 15 games or more, freshmen or sophomores who have over 10% or more offensive rebound rate, because I find that anecdotally to be like the sign of a really good rebounder, because defensive rebounds nowadays really depends on, like, it doesn't always correlate with being a good rebounder. Like Knicks fans have seen this for a while. Like Mitch Robinson is really the designated box out guy, and then Julius gets the vacuum. Julius is a good rebounder, but he gets extra free rebounds on top of that.
Yeah.
And then so 10% offensive rebound rate, 10% block rate, which means you're blocking the fuck out of everything, and then 1.5 steal rate, which is just good, is tall, and has a BPM of over 5. So like basically you're impacting the game positively, and is a really short list full of a bunch of NBA players. It's Anthony Davis, Walker Kessler, Nerlens, Willie Cauley-Stein, Lively, Embiid, Tibbs legend favorite Gorgie Jang,
yes,
my son Isaiah Jackson, Robert Williams, who is not as good as Mitchell Robinson, as we all know now that the Knicks wallops the Celtics, Mo Bamba and Kem Birch. And if you, I mean, it's notable that all these guys are good and Lively's on the list. And in defensive box plus minus, he's tied with, he's a little bit over Embiid and below Willie Cauley-Stein, Nerlens, Kessler, and AD. But the thing that jumped out the most to me was, if you sort by assist percentage, the only ones who have double-digit assist percentage as prospects are Joel Embiid, Robert Williams, and Derek Lively, right? Like, those are, I mean, Robert Williams and Joel Embiid, they're exceptional passers for their size. I'm not saying Lively's going to be there, particularly because Joel, like, he'll just never have the offensive gravity that Joel has.
The pick and pop, the post ups, like that type of stuff.
The whole package. And then Robert Williams has had his own amazing, I mean, he's obviously not Embiid, but he's developed really well. But he's got it in there at some point. So if, like, we talked about the shooting being gravy, if anything else happens on offense for his development, his passing just becomes that much more valuable because any gravity he has will allow him to pass more. So there's just like some sneaky upside there and a high floor, which is why I'm very high on this guy. And he's my dark horse to be on the Knicks radar, even though we have 3 centers who are solid, just because Sims is like, he's fine, but he's not the kind of center who prevents you from picking a center. And then Hartenstein is really good, but he has 1 more year after this year, and then that's it. So you could do worse with your pick than pick a kid who you could let marinate for a year under the tutelage of Tibbs and some other really good centers, and then, you know, train him to be Mitch's backup. Or eventually, if you have to trade Mitch, then you have another guy in the wings or whatever. And if you have injuries, he's the type of guy who could probably be all right as a rookie as far as rookie centers go. So I'm a big Lively fan. You're a big Lively fan. Knicks people listening to this, I know you hate it when I advocate for the Knicks to draft a center, but I submit this for your consideration for the awards this year.
Again, it's the scheme versatility. It's the comfort guarding in space on the perimeter. His post defense, like one-on-one post defense, is getting better. Like he was really solid against State, guarding DJ Burns, who's like a nice low post target for State last night. And number 3 nationally in block rate. It's not that's not like a fake number. Like he gets he blocks a lot of tough shots.
He's huge.
He keeps a lot of shots in play. Like he launches fast breaks, and that offensive rebound rate up to 13.5%. I'm telling you, some of those are like
Jesus.
Some of those, it's like, yeah, like he's the tallest guy in the court and he jumps high. So like he's gonna get some stuff. But like he had one against it was either Louisville or Virginia Tech, like in a scramble last week where like he did the Tyson Chandler like tap back out for a bucket to somebody. And like it's just like that's a winning basketball play. Like, yeah, it's an offensive rebound, but it also like it was a contested rebound that led directly to points. It's like a high percentage look. So yeah, again, like you have to like look at him through the right lens. It's like, you're not using a lottery pick on this guy, and he's not Anthony Davis, but like, can he be a starting center in the NBA for a while? Like, and give you, production on both sides of the court? Like, yeah, I think he can.
There you have it. Don't sleep on my boy D Live. On that note, we can talk about the next guy in that game, Flip. Flip, I feel like his stock has gone up and down and all around a little bit. He just came in. It was so clear that of the Duke kids, he was the most ready to just get buckets. And I was actually like, I had very stereotyped opinions. I was like, oh, he's 7 feet and he's good at offense, but he's probably can't play center in the NBA because you got to be really good at defense to play center in the NBA. And I didn't consider like, oh, maybe he's quick enough on his feet to play the 4. There's a lot of big 3s and big 4s now. You got guys like, I mean, they're obviously different players, but like Lauri Markkanen plays the 3 sometimes. Julius Randle has played the 3 sometimes. Like some 3s are legit 4s in other contexts now. As far as, there's still small ball around the league and all that, but more often it's like, can you defend 3s? Can you defend 4? It's who can you defend, and can you put the ball on the floor on offense? So someone like Flip, I wonder, he's the kind of player who, if he can defend 4s and 5s in the NBA, then Brian had a little crisis here. I'm gonna keep going though. If he can defend 4s and 5s in the NBA, I think he has the ball skills to hang in there at the 4, not just the 5. You good, bro?
Yeah. Sorry, I had to just do something downstairs real quick.
It's all good. People got to see your lateral agility here.
Oh, God.
This is how Brian rolls, right? Handle business. He
Deeply
lives it.
embarrassing. I apologize.
I was just saying with Flip, like he had more ball skills than I thought he had, and that leads me to be a little more comfortable that he can play the 4 in the NBA. I don't know about the 3, but definitely the 4. Yeah. But I'm wondering where you're at in terms of like 4, like tweener in the good way, tweener in the bad way. Like how do we feel about Flip? Like he clearly has some skills.
Yeah, like he is. I like Flip. I do think there's a chance he comes back to Duke. I don't know if he's a lock to stick in the 2023 draft. But I think there's also a very good chance that he dips out. Like he's huge and he's strong. He loves contact. Like I don't think it's like he's gotten knocked in the face a bunch this season. He's had guys go after him. Like the dude likes to mix it up. You know what I mean? So it's cool that he's like. So do I think he can like play 4 in the NBA? Like yeah, he can. In part because he really rebounds too. And I know he hasn't shot like a great percentage from 3 this season, but like I think he's going to shoot it long term.
I do too. I like his mechanics a lot.
I do too. And the free throw shooting, which is a great indicator, like he shot really well from the line. And like the 3s this guy's taken, they're not just like stand still, shoot off of a tee spot up 3s, right? They're picking pops. He's taken some off dribble 3s too. It's like, which, maybe deflates those numbers a little bit. But yeah, I think the physicality, the shot, and like you said, the skills too. Like he's got some short roll game. He's got some DHO game, some fake DH dribble handoff, get downhill. Again, the short roll passing. They use him a lot as a screener at Duke. They run a lot of 1-4 looks with Lively in the dunker spot and Flip being the one, setting screening and popping or screening and short rolling. And again, he can make reads from that. They run not as much as like Bancaro last year, but they definitely kept some of like the Bancaro like elbow 4-5 pick and roll looks. Like you'll see they Flip and Lively have run pick and roll from the elbow, like out of horns or just out of elbow a couple of times this season. And like Flip has scored on those looks. He's made like I'm talking about like live dribble pocket passes, in like inside the lane to Lively for finishes or to Ryan Young for a layup or whatever. And there was one game, I think it was the Wake Forest game. After a timeout, they ran 3 straight 4-5 pick and rolls. I asked John Shire about it after the game, and he was like, "I trust him to make the right decisions on those types of plays." So he's got skills. He gets himself into trouble sometimes when he, especially early in the year, they were so dependent on him for shot creation. This is really before like Roach got healthy and before Proctor had sort of like ascended to more like prominent on ball role and creation role. Flip has this habit of like he uses a lot of spin moves and behind the back dribbles to create separation. He can be loose with the basketball, and it's been like kind of a joke among some of like the online Duke crowd of like, oh God, here goes Flip, like ISO from 22 feet, and like he's just like which behind the back dribble is it going to be the second or third one? Which one's going to go like out of bounds, But like he's willing to try stuff. And there are other times too where the spin moves are really tight and really physical, and he uses it to get separation in the final third and get downhill and finish. And like I don't know if it's surprising or not. I guess I hadn't like been keeping up with these two numbers for him as much as I thought all season, but like Duke's defense, which by the way has been like a top 10, top 12 unit in the country the last month. Lively is a huge reason for that. It's not a defense that like gets a lot of steals and other than Lively doesn't really block a ton of shots. They just don't force a ton of turnovers. Filipowski is like the one guy. And he's at, he's over 2%, 2.5% both block and steal rate this season.
That's high.
Yeah, exactly. So like the rep on him coming into the season was bad on defense, right? Like that was part of the rep. And they had a preseason game against, I think, Fayetteville State, where like there are a couple like, ball screen pick and pop situations with him in space where it was like, oh, this looks bad. And it hasn't been an issue this year. Like he switches a lot. They use him to switch out onto fours. He's basically, I'm not labeling Filipowski as a 1-5 defender, but in college this season, he's guarded 1-5 and done a pretty good job in space. And again, he's super physical. He crashes the glass. He rebounds. I buy the shot. He can pass, and he scores from a bunch of different levels. And you don't have to like run stuff. Like you can run offense through him, but also you don't need to run stuff to get it full. Because he can spot up, because he can mash dudes on the offensive glass, because he gets out in transition and like fills the lane. Like he just like hustles his way into like points too.
There's a big role for guys like that. Like, of course, when we think of awesome power forwards, it's very easy to be like, oh, like Knicks fans think of Julius Randle, and then there's other guys in the league like Pascal and Laurie and Sabonis and Zion, without even talking about like obviously Giannis or AD or whatever. But then after that, after like those 10 guys, like the Julius, Pascal, Laurie, Jaren kind of crew, then it's you're looking at a bunch of, I don't want to say role players because it almost feels disrespectful, but they're really important for their teams in a lot of ways. You're looking at guys like Evan Mobley, Aaron Gordon, Bobby Portis is one, Nick Legend, Bobby Portis. My biggest regret was just hating and slandering him while he was on the Knicks, and then he went on to do great things.
Yeah,
he's cool.
He's good.
I've apologized numerous times on Twitter to Bobby. I'm sure he's seen my apologies.
I owe him an apology too. Like when Milwaukee added him, I was like, what? I don't get it. And it's worked out like beautifully.
Yeah, he's killing. He's playing really arguably the best ball of his career right now as they win a zillion games in a row.
They're good, man.
Yeah, and then you keep going, and it's like you see what guys like Jared Vanderbilt is doing for LA, or my favorite from last year, Tari Eason, even though Houston stinks, and Santi Aldama. Like there's just like a weird Mick Kelly Olynyk. Like there's guys with big roles and small roles, and who can be potential like sub all stars like Aaron Gordon, or just random eighth men like Jared Vanderbilt, who are contributing to quality hoops. And there's not enough star power forwards in the league for every team to have one. And I know some teams will like to play like small forwards at the four as well, and that's totally there's some small forwards who you can definitely do that with, right? Like obviously guys like LeBron and Kawhi, and
Yeah.
even some other guys like Scotty Barnes or
Yeah.
Andrew Wiggins or whatever. But I think there's a place in many teams in this league for these skilled role player fours. And you look at how many teams, because you need skill on the floor at all times now, it's not just good enough to be 3 and D and you can't dribble or do anything. You look at that's the reason why a lot of teams will play their threes at the four. That's the
Mhm.
reason why you see a Keldon Johnson or a Sadiq Bey or a Kyle Kuzma or whoever playing the four. It's because they're strong-ish and can put it on the deck. But when teams have 7-footers like Laurie, who can play the three, who can play down, or even play the four,
Mhm.
and just like Julius isn't tall, but he's stronger than everybody he plays. And obviously Julius is an all-star, so like I'm not saying that's in Flip's future, but like if you can move and credibly do a little bit of defense on the 3 and 4 off the bench, shoot it, and put it on the deck respectably, like he just feels like a pick who's boring, but it's gonna be in the league and are gonna be in the rotations for a long fucking time. And I almost feel like he's like underrated now. Like before, he was getting mocked like kind of high, and I was like, oh, all right, there, relax. But
Yeah. Yeah.
but I'm like,
Yeah.
damn, like he's solid. He's gonna be solid for someone.
Yeah. The shooting numbers of I mean, again, it got to a point this season where like he was clearly at the top of the scouting report, and he probably
Yeah,
still is. And I think that, I mean, I think the 3-pointers run a little cold in conference play, but also just like he's gotten a lot of attention. He just does a ton of stuff offensively. It's just hard to just like he can just kind of do a little bit of everything. He can shoot. He's got the handoff game. He's got the short roll game. You can post him up against mismatches. He's totally fine with contact. He draws a ton of fouls. He gets a ton of and ones. He hits the offensive glass. And like one of Duke's like bailout plays, like when the set doesn't work, like one of the things they like to do is they clear out a side with Jeremy Roach or Tyrese Proctor, and they just run like 2-man, like pick and pop. And he's got like a good feel for that. You know what I mean?
mm-hmm.
Like, okay, pop. No, this time we rescreen. Now I'm diving into the post. And I caught in the post. Is there a double coming? All right, can I throw it to like he's just got you can kind of see him going through the reads. Maybe he's like a little mechanical sometimes. But I think he's got a good feel in that regard. And I mean, like he moves pretty well. Like I kind of, again, I didn't see much of Flip before he got to Durham, where I've seen a lot of him. And like, he's not like the smoothest of movers, but like he moves well enough, in my opinion. And I think laterally he's shown more than I thought he had, switching out and sliding against. I mean, this is where his size can really help him out. And obviously, NBA primary creators, it's like like it's one thing to switch out onto like Virginia Tech starting point guard than it is to switch out onto like Donovan Mitchell and just get like
Yeah,
burned to a
you're gonna
crisp.
get cooked. The best, most switchable
Like,
players are gonna mostly get cooked. That's what I
yeah,
think people
it
online forget
happens,
to
man.
realize in the NBA.
the,
Like we,
the point is keeping the ball in front. You know what I mean? Like, which is
right?
what you're going for with the switch and making those guys hit tough shots, whatever. Um, but I do think Flips like when he has to like show and recover or be at the level and recover. I think he's shown some good stuff there too. Like I think he's been a little bit more comfortable in space than I thought he was, and yeah, it just feels like this is a guy that settles in. Like he's gonna shoot volume threes at like a pretty high clip, and again with his size, with the passing, and with the physicality, it's like it feels like he can really contribute and be in like you said, man, like just like be in NBA rotations for a long time.
Yeah, he's on my underrated. I think he as far as Knicks go, like we have Jules, we have OB, so I don't think he's in the cards for us.
Yeah, yeah,
But there's plenty of teams I think that could use him, and I think he has more upside with the shooting. Because if he's this impactful of a college player and he's just been like bricking threes all fucking season, like if that
yeah.
thing ever gets consistent, he's gonna be very versatile. Like you see guys like this is what I'm saying, like guys like Isaiah Stewart and Kelly Olynyk can play the 4 and the 5, not defend the rim, set screens, rebounds, get steals, create events, and just be crafty and be really impactful.
Yeah, Duke has not had to like hide him at all defensively this year. Do you know what I mean? Like they've played very little. I mean, when they played zone, it hasn't been because of him, and they've done that a little bit this year. But like they don't have to hide him. And I mean, like this stuff, I don't think is like an incredible indicator for like success on the next level necessarily. But like he has almost start to finish led the ACC and like the Ken Palm like Conference Player of the Year metric. Like on top of a guy like Armando Bacot at UNC, who like is the kind of player that's like designed because of rebounds and points, is designed to like these categories, and Flip is just like almost end to end. We're heading to the last week of the regular season too, and like again, he's almost start to finish led the league all season long in that metric too as a freshman, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah, I'm a big fan, and I'm rooting to see if he has he's the kind of guy who's a good enough scorer that if he just has a week and a half of just shooting the ball well, that could really change the fortunes of this Duke team in the tournament.
Yeah.
All right. There's other Duke guys we could talk about, but I'm gonna skip over them for now and go to Nick Draft watcher favorite, Terquavion Smith. I think lots of people are fans of his. I can't put my finger on why. Maybe it's because there's like loose. It's funny because Quickly has like evolved. Like he's gone from like coming into the league as a bomber, shooter, sniper, and then he couldn't shoot consistently, and he became like he was like, I'm gonna become a fucking elite defender or whatever. And now he's scoring and doing that, and it's like, oh, he might win Sixth Man of the Year now.
Yeah,
so like
he rules. I love Quickly.
So Turk had like some similar vibes as like combo guard, gunner, and last year everybody was like, he needs to work on his point guard skills, and he came in this year and he had worked on his point guard skills. So it's like, okay, this is awesome. And but I haven't followed him since earlier in the year, to be honest. I haven't watched many of State games. This is why I'm kind of mad at myself for missing the game yesterday. But like where is he at compared to last year? Like last year he was kind of acknowledged as a solid player who could maybe return, and if he could return, like on the one hand he could be one of the best returners, but on the other hand this class is kind of stacked, so that makes it tricky. But on the other hand, this class doesn't have a lot of guards. But on the other hand, he's kind of short, and it's tough for short guards. So, like, where are we at on Turk?
Yeah, and he's skinny. Like he's really skinny. He's not put on a lot of weight since last season. Like, what stinks is it's like if we'd had this conversation about Baby T, as he's known in these parts. I live in Raleigh. I think it would be more positive. He's in the midst of a really bad slump, and it's all the jumper has just like left the building for him the last month, and which
is like unthinkable.
Yeah, because he's such a nutty volume shooter. Now State is off. They say that State doesn't have a game the last weekend of the regular season, so like I don't know. I was kind of hoping maybe this weekend, Turk will go back to Greenville and get up 500 shots at Farmville Central High School and, get, Glock it. But like, so again, jumper's in a really bad spot. And the context isn't great either because State's offense, if you've watched, if you've scouted, Darion Sebron last year, Turk last year, like it is one of the highest of high volume pick and roll offenses in the country. Like, almost every possession, if it's not a post up for DJ Burns, is going to be ball screen for Jarkel Joyner or Terquavion Smith. This team doesn't get a ton of rim pressure. They don't get to the line. Turk's the one like perimeter guy that draws like decent contact, and his foul drawing has gone up. Like he's at 4.5 fouls drawn per 40 minutes. That's like at least up one from last season, which is nice to see. But basically, like the offense just like it leads to a lot of teams being able to dictate how they want to guard Terquavion, right? Like, and we saw, especially early in the season, teams putting a ton of attention on the ball just to get it out of his hands. But worse is that it can also just lead to a lot of like tough off dribble shots, right? And so for a guy like Terquavion, that's never been like a great half court finisher at the rim and is playing in this offense that is also going to route a lot of his usage into like pull up threes, pull up mid range twos, and the jumpers left the building. Then all of a sudden he's just every game he's just like stuck in the mud, and I think it is impacting his confidence a little bit. Like I think last night at Duke, you could see him getting frustrated. He's a really passionate player. Like he's got a kind of a passion that I bet I'm sure Knicks fans would love. Like he plays with a lot of heart. He came back because he like wanted to be a part of this. And the team's been really good, and he's the main reason for it, But he's really struggling right now. I was a little worried heading into the season because for this very reason, honestly, and I was wrong for 2/3 of the season. But last year when they had Darion Sebron, as you remember going through the scouting process, like Sebron was the best rim pressure guy in college basketball, right? Like, I mean, Elias Williams was awesome. There's some other guys we could talk about last year, but Sebron was like special in terms of like volume, efficiency, foul drawing, and the degree of difficulty he was doing it, off of, right? And he created a lot of good looks for Terquavion, right? Like that was such an awesome slash and kick combo, downhill pick and roll or drag screen, whatever for Sebron. Terquavion shakes up, open catch and shoot three. And like Turk's just like not getting those looks this season, right? Like they don't have Jarkel Joyner, their other guard, is really good. He draws a ton of attention, but he's not the kind of guy that's like going to collapse the defense and then kick out for a spot up three for Terquavion, right? Turk has to like hunt those looks off of post ups and in transition more so than just like being second side on pick and roll action. And so I was worried, like, well, this means, like he's going to get less catch and shoot threes and he's going to get more pick and roll opportunities. And like he can do that, but he wasn't especially efficient with it last season out of the pick and roll. It's been better this year. So like that's where I think he's just at the wrong time. He's backsliding, with the jumper. But all season long, I think the playmaking has been there. You can look at like the assist numbers jumped a ton. He doesn't turn the ball over for a guy that's like, a pretty creative passer, for someone that you're like.
And he has the ball in his hands a lot.
A ton. And it's all pick and roll. Like it's just all pick and roll. And so again, it's not like they're putting him in like a lot of like creative sets, you know what I mean, to like route that usage through him coming off pin downs or having an empty corner. It's like it's none of that, it's always him versus like a stacked set defense. But so again, I still think like Terquavion is like an interesting bet as like you're betting on his upside as a creator. But it does speak to, I think like right now what you're seeing, like it does speak to the limitations that like he's probably never going to be like a great downhill finisher, right? Like maybe you get him in some more spacing, etc. He's got a nasty handle, really, really wicked handle. And he has the ability, maybe not with a great first step, but he still has like enough like sort of like jittery speed to like get guys down, to like take dudes downhill. And but like ultimately he's got to be able to play off the shot. Like I just think that's something that like he's got to have to force teams to guard him a certain way so that he can actually go at the matchups or make passes to guys around certain coverages, and just like it hasn't been there recently. So he's in a tough spot. I'm hopeful that he can like break out of it and close the season strongly, because like I still think he's like an interesting like long-term bet for the NBA. And my opinion of him really hasn't changed all that much. You know what I mean? He's just like in a tough spot, and so it's like it's really like messing the numbers. And I think it's caused his stock to definitely like crater some the last month here.
Do you think he'll consider coming back?
I think I don't think he will, but like it's not out of the question. It's like he does like playing at NC State. It's close to his home. Like um he's very close with several of the guys on the team, including Ernest Ross and Breon Passer, two guys he was recruited into state with. So like I think it's possible, but I mean he's it's probably not like coming into college, he wasn't slotted as like a one and done or a two and done kind of guy. Like he was like a barely top 100 prospect in 2021. So maybe he is open to it. But my guess would be after going through the process last year and then him having a big season despite the slump and the team playing well, like my guess would be that he'll probably look to go pro. But for whatever it's worth, like Terquavion's definitely made some money for himself this year with NIL. Right, and he would get to do it again next year if he did come back. But my guess would be that like he'll look to become an employee of an NBA franchise here soon enough.
I'm crossing my fingers. I think he's definitely easy to root for and super entertaining. And I just think he'll have a transition, and a smart team will ease that transition by, like you mentioned, last year he had guys who could set him up a little bit more. He'll probably have that in the NBA, right?
Yeah.
So you hope that he's coming off the bench for some team, and whether he plays a lot or not, he'll have chances to do that. And if he ends up getting G League reps, then I'm sure there was many other things that particularly the driving and finishing that his employer would like him to work on. So I'm definitely not out on him. It's more just this class has so many interesting, talented players that there's just like a big blob from like 17 to 18 to like 40, where I'm like some teams could have Turk and Lively 17th or 20th. And some teams might be like, fuck that. I'm not taking a short 170-pound guy or a weird, like sort of doofy, gigantic 4, and like let somebody else worry about that. So
I think it's interesting. Like the Hornets have Denver's pick. And like there's a time where it was like, no, there's no way Turk will be available at like 27. And we'll see, I guess. I think the door is at least cracked for that now. Last thing I would say about Turk, like defensively, he's not very good. But he does, he ball watches, he can space out off the ball. His screen nav is not amazing, but like he's got like a plus wingspan, not crazy long arms, but like he does create steals. He's pretty like he'll hustle on closeouts.
Yeah, he's athletic.
I think there's some stuff you can do to kind of like hone him in on that end and not have him be like he'll have a target probably because he's often going to be like the smallest guy in the court or whatever. But I think there's some stuff like I think he can improve. Like he's got some tools and you can improve him on that end. And then he has also been dealing with like maybe if you've seen him play recently, like his left hand, like thumb, wrist, hand, like it's been wrapped. And he's a right-handed player. Like he shoots with his right hand. But Terquavion, every dunk he's had at NC State, like he's got the John Wall thing. Every dunk has been left-handed. I've tagged every single dunk. All of them left-handed. And I was talking with someone last night that scouted Terquavion going back to high school. He said, I've seen this guy play since his freshman year. I've seen him in high school. He's like, he said to me, I've seen him dunk one time with his right hand. It is. And so I was wondering, like, part of me is wondering, well, like if, he finishes with his right hand on non-dunk attempts, but I don't know. Part of me was wondering if like is he a little wary of getting downhill because the left hand is like compromised right now? Like, I don't think that's what's happening, but I don't know. I'm like looking for reasons to justify why he's struggling right now, and maybe that's one of them.
Yeah, it might be. I'll definitely keep an eye on that. I didn't know he had a. I knew about the John Wall stuff. But I didn't know he had a rap on.
Yeah.
All right. The next guy is probably the headliner, and I purposely put him in the middle of the pod so I could get you fuckers listening to tune in for the whole discussion. It's Dariq Whitehead, who is, we're in a weird place with Dariq where his stats are mostly not good, except for his 3-point percentage, which is awesome. And he's had not one, but several injuries. He was highly recruited, and he hasn't had the numbers to back that up. But he also is put in a very specific floor spacing role for a team that direly needs floor spacing. So on the one hand, I'm like, yeah, I could see why they have him putting it up. On the other hand, like sometimes I watch him and I'm like, you can't blow by anybody right now. Like, like
Yeah.
they got to give him pin downs and stuff just to get him going, which is fine, right?
Yeah.
Like the Knicks do that for RJ Barrett a lot, but RJ Barrett, when like he can also get by somebody one on one now, and I don't know, the injury stuff was the subject of a recent article on The Athletic that I thought was really informative. It wasn't anything like revelatory. It was kind of what you'd expect. So for people who don't know, Dariq Whitehead was also like lively one of the top recruits, depending on who you read, the top recruit. If you look at his high school mixtape, it looks like something from a video game. He did it all. And his last season at Montverde High School, he was the center of their offense despite other star players being on there, and a lot of it was based on his really crazy shot making for a 17, 18-year-old, like coming off screen, shooting threes off the dribble, getting into the paint, and using craft. And with a little bit of space, he could get up pretty high, and he wasn't like a tight space jumper or anything like that last year. The year before that, when he was like 16, he was like a insane, like not Thompson twin, but like not far from that. Like he was dunking from like
Mhm.
ridiculous angles and stuff like that. So it's clear that the combination of just getting older and waking and athleticism, I mean, not and injuries have probably sapped some of his athleticism. But the question that is on many Knicks fans' minds is similar to what we went through with AJ Griffin last year, which is like, okay, even if he's not this ridiculous athlete, is there enough in the tank that like we should not just overlook a strong 6'7" wing who can shoot? Of course, of course, AJ
Are,
Griffin.
the, are those guys useful in the NBA or something? I can't. I mean,
Yeah,
is that an important thing to have?
right. Like the Knicks don't really have that kind of guy. But I mean, Josh Hart is like 6'5" on paper and like 6'9"
Yeah.
in impact. So he's
Yeah.
basically that guy. But like I've like wake up every day with a different opinion on Whitehead, and he very much is being mocked in the Knicks range and to the Knicks in a lot of cases because the Knicks are finally in that range where I'm not saying this is their draft philosophy, but if they wanted to, they could take a home run swing.
Yeah.
We've seen playoff teams that are good but not contenders do that. The Nuggets did it famously with Michael Porter Jr. I mean, they had Jokic, but he wasn't like fully operational Death Star Jokic like he is now
Yeah.
at the
Yeah.
time, but he was clearly good. And they were like, "Fuck it, we don't need a role player. We're just gonna take a swing on this guy," and it worked out. It doesn't always work out, but the Knicks could do that if they wanted. Lately, my feeling has been I'm too much of a coward. I am not about that life. I'm just gonna let another team
Mhm.
take the risk because this guy's athleticism seems to have decreased for 2 or 3 years straight, and he can shoot, but so can lots of other guys. And he's a solid defender, but shooting a solid defender who's a good shooter, but not like a great shooter is that's not my prize of my dreams here for this pick. But other people are like, fuck that. swing for the fences, work this guy back from injury. Even if he doesn't return to like 2020 athleticism, he's still probably got more ball skills in the tank than he's showing at Duke, because this is what Duke does with their prospects. They tell them, it's like a lesser version of what we see at Kentucky with Coach Cal, where a lot of the times, except for Flip, apparently they're like, do your role and do your thing, and Flip meanwhile gets to do like the Flip mixtape or whatever.
29% usage.
Yeah, 29% usage and all types of the whole package of type of variety. So like, where are you at? And since you're actually in the area and around people who presumably, I mean, he's not from there, he's from Jersey, right outside the city.
Yeah.
But like, I'm sure people were super excited for this guy to join the team, and like had to manage expectations and all that. So what's that been like?
Yeah, it's been interesting. I mean, it's been tough because it's like, he is, and often he's the most talented guy in the gym, but he just is unable to show it. He's missed time this season because of injuries, foot injury to start the season. Man, the injury he had against, I think it was Clemson the other week.
I was scared.
It looked like he tore his Achilles. Like,
yeah, I think that's what everybody texted me.
Yeah, no one was coming out and saying it like right away, but it was like, oh, that looks like this thing that I really hope it's not. What I would say for Derek, as far as the shooting goes, like, he shoots with his upper body a lot. He really uses his hands. He flicks his wrist a ton. So this was even mentioned in the article in the Athletics, like having to strengthen his lower body. I mean, again, I've seen him shoot warm-up shots a lot, and you can see it. Like, he really does he generates a lot of that shot with his upper body, with his arms, with his hands, which is like, it's not
you usually see that. Yeah, you usually see that from tall, like big fucking, like LeBron does that. Like guys who are big and
have the strength over you. Just do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, AJ Griffin wasn't, you think about the like archetypal AJ Griffin shot. He's in like the Jeff Bagwell batting stance.
Exactly. He's the reverse.
Shooting the three. And I mean, look, Derek, as of like a week ago, was leading the ACC in 3-point percentage during conference play on like decent volume. The 3-point shooting has not been like as impactful as AJ's was last season, where AJ was doing it with such incredible volume from incredible distances, doing it off movement. And like they run, there's two different like weak side pin down actions they run for Whitehead. I think he's been like, okay, not great on those looks this season. Occasionally they give him some ball handling opportunities where they do these like inverted like ghost screens where like one of the guards will throw it at him and then run in his direction and then slip out, and they'll try to get him going downhill off that. And like, there's been some flashes, but they're just flashes, right? He's really struggled to finish at the rim in the half court. He missed a dunk in transition at one point this season. Like, he just has not been able to like explode and get off the floor. Like, it just isn't there. And what sucks is like, it's fucked with his confidence. Like, he's come out and talked about it, or he's talking about it, and like it really sucks to see. And I feel for him because having this happen publicly is tough. Like, he's obviously very, very talented, but like, he just doesn't get lift on. You'll see him like show good body control and sometimes some good strength when he drives to the rim, but like, he doesn't get enough lift.
The time I see it the most, aside from the dunks, which is really, I did a voiceover video on air showing the dunks, but lately, like, I was watching some more of his pre-college stuff, and he's really good at doing like long jumps, and he's still good now. Like, he'll do long jumps, and like you said, he has the body contortion ability, and he has pretty big hands, and he'll just like, you can tell if he could jump higher, this would be like a fire move where he would just like contort, jump across the lane, and then just like place the ball somewhere near the middle of the square. But now it's not the middle of the square. Now it's like a scoop shot. That shit is not as effective.
It's too much below the rim finishing,
Right.
And and again, you can see it. Like, I've seen him up close a lot this season, and I think he's worn some of those confidence issues on his sleeve. So I really do feel for him. And like, there was one game, the Ohio State game early in the season, which was one of his first sort of like good flashes of play. Like, he hit a three, he got a steal, and he hit one of those threes, and he actually like happened to sort of like backpedal right by me on press row, and like you could see the relief on his face. He was like, again, it sucks because like he's young, and this has been happening very publicly. Like you're under the microscope when you play at Duke, and you're Montverde guy, and you're mocked to go top 10, etc. So I think he's still like worth a swing. I mean, I kind of think a team like New York would be like a little interesting. He and Barrett actually know one another. Like RJ's senior year, Tariq was an 8th grader on the varsity team there, so those guys have actually played together.
That's hilarious.
A while
I
ago.
forget.
Yeah.
This is one of those reminders that like RJ is 22.
Yeah.
Even though it feels like he's been in the league forever.
Yeah. RJ has college teammates that are still like Joey Baker plays at Michigan this season, and like those dudes were in the same.
It's so funny.
Same recruiting class, man. Yeah, it's nuts. But so I still think he's like an interesting upside play, but like I want to see like the confidence stuff. It's like it sucks now, but it's like you can probably work through that with time. It's just like physically, where's he at? Because if he's just a shooter, like that's one thing, but like does he have the ability? Like he was built as a slasher. Like can he ever get back to that? Assuming full health and full confidence. And part of me does think like the lack of vertical pop, like how much of that is physical and how much of that is him just being like worried to like fully test out the foot or fully test out anything else that's bothering him. Just like really open it up. I think Duke's been pretty careful with him for the most part. They tend to be as careful as the college program could be in terms of from like the sports science perspective. So I trust that physically he's there. They wouldn't be playing him if he wasn't. So part of me does think like, well, is this just what he is now, or is this like a confidence thing? And I think if you're a team that like if you're drafted in the mid to late first round, like you do your research and then you make your decision. But he could end up being a steal. Like the people that covered that followed him before Duke really like his game a lot, and they've seen him more than I have, and those are some of those people are guys that I really trust with evaluating talent, and so that makes me I don't want to give up on Tariq just yet. So and the fact that he's used some of this like rehab time to like work on his shot is kind of cool too. Like he's taken a crappy situation and he's like unearthed a long-term positive thing out of it. So I think that's cool that tip the cap to Tariq and tip the cap to Duke's staff for trying to mine some good out of a tough situation. So I don't know where I am on Tariq, but I mean damn, if he was available in like the middle of the first round, like the pure talent gamble, it would be tough for me to pass that opportunity up, I gotta say.
Yeah, I think a lot of Knicks fans who are much less cowardly than me are right there with you.
Well, I'm usually a coward when it comes to this stuff, but it's not my team, so I'm like, go for it.
I have to worry about my reputation that nobody cares about, except for when it's championing 23-year-old lead ball handling prospects or whatever. Yeah, no, the article and what I've heard about Tariq, and like I'm from New York, Jersey area, and people say he's nobody doubts the work ethic. He seems like a great kid, and
he is.
The article, like you could read in the article, it seems like he's bummed about all this stuff, but he's working through it. So it's
everyone on that team's pulling for him too. I'll say that. Like you can tell it's one of those times when you can tell when he's a good teammate, like when he subs in or if he hits a shot, like everyone, like this was like the case for before AJ like was fully operational last season when he was like just starting to come on for Duke. Everyone on the team is like really rooting for him, and like that probably says something about the human being behind that is the player too.
Yeah, totally. So I'm definitely gonna keep rooting for him. The article said that they estimated he was 2 to 3 weeks out from being where they wanted him to be physically. So I'm hoping Duke can last long enough to cook and let him cook. I don't know what that end result, Dariq Whitehead actually looks like. Um, it's it's interesting because like just from a Knicks perspective, he doesn't seem like the kind of guy they historically take. They rarely take 18, 19-year-olds.
Yeah.
They don't take guys who can't contribute now, and I don't mean like get by, I mean like contribute. So that's asking a lot of someone like him who's coming back from injury. But on the other hand, I don't want to say they've taken reclamation projects, but they show a very clear capacity to look beyond what a player is and at what a player could be. And they do this both with the drafting and with their free agency signings. We've seen it in the draft with Emmanuel Quickly and Quentin Grimes, who have both now like Quickly has far outstripped several things he was billed as. Grimes famously came in as a 5-star guard, not unlike Dariq, flamed out, transferred, rebuilt himself as a 3-and-D effort, high athlete, high motor guy, and is now doing that in the NBA. But I'm not ruling out more on-ball stuff for him as he gets older, because that stuff is still there in the tank from when he was a point guard. And then, with Deuce McBride, he didn't run an NBA offense in college, so they were like, go to Westchester and run 1,000 pick and rolls per day. And he did that, and he got pretty good at it. And he's out of the rotation, but he's definitely going to stick around the league for a while. And so you see them, Josh Hart is changing his shot profile now that he's here. Cam Reddish is no longer here, but when he was here, they changed his shot profile to try to better suit his skills. He didn't agree with that, presumably.
Thus continues the mystery that is Cam Reddish's offensive game. I think you clipped the thing about with Julius Randle Tibbs talking about Randle's shot profile. That was really interesting. I listened to that clip. That was pretty interesting, actually. Like, shout out to New York and the coaching staff and the analytics staff probably for working on that.
The Knicks are like, this Knicks season is like a analytics fever dream. I don't think people realize it, because most teams are, somewhat analytically crazy right now anyway. Like every team is. Yeah. There's not many like, oh, okay, boomer, like lose, like analytics. Even the teams with small analytics staff probably lean on those guys quite a bit. But with these Knicks, they're like, oh, Mitchell Robinson has the highest points per possession on offensive rebounds off of floaters. We're just going to ask all our guys to get floaters and sign and play guys who can hit floaters. And even if they can't hit floaters like RJ, we're going to ask them to take the floaters because we got Mitch. And then we're going to bring in Hartenstein, who's also great at offensive rebounding at floater and taking floaters. And then we're going to bring in Josh Hart, who's good at offensive rebound. Like, they're nuts. Like, their analytic shot profile. That's why I joke on Twitter that we have like the grifter offense. Every other top 10 offense is like 58 true shooting, 59 true shooting, 57, and the Knicks are like 55.
We're just playing murder ball on the offensive glass here.
Yeah, instead. and then you look at all those offenses and you look at field goal attempts per game, and they're all like 84, 85, and the Knicks 90, despite being at the slowest pace. So they really got some cheat codes out here, and I don't know if someone like Dariq would fit into that, but someone like Lively would. That's why he's a dark horse. That's why he's a dark horse for me. All right, moving on. There's two other guys I want to talk about who are really interesting. The first is Matthew Cleveland, who I actually first wrote about last year when he was a freshman, because he was pretty hyped up as a prospect, and he was like a big dude. He was like a 6'9" when he came in, rangy, typical FSU recruit looking dude. Looked like he could play the 3, 4, 5 and all in one possession. And I was like, okay, this guy seems athletic too. His jump shot isn't beautiful, but or last year it wasn't beautiful. And but he showed he had some ball skills to work with or whatever. And then it kind of just fizzled out. FSU wasn't great. And now I'm not gonna lie, I really wasn't paying attention to him or FSU, especially once Baba Miller, who's like he was like a very theoretical on paper prospect who I was excited about. It was clear that he was more on paper than I had suspected. Cleveland, somebody sent me his stats, and I was like, oh shit, like, is he hooping now? And then he hit this like whatever 50-foot game winner
Yeah, and
recently.
to come back against a really good Miami team. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually forgot to post it, but I went out of my way to clip all of his 3-pointers from this year and all of his 3-pointers from last year and put them on my own secret, special, private YouTube channel where I put all my nerd stuff before I turn it into videos. And I'm not gonna lie, like his shot looks tremendously improved. So I'm like,
Yeah.
I need to. I don't know if he's like he hadn't been on any first round mocks, so I don't. I haven't watched them, so I'm really. I
Yeah.
just put this meal in the oven. It's barely cooked, but I'm interested on if you have any thoughts on him and
Yeah.
FSU. Yeah.
Yeah, real quickly, would just say like, with him last season, he struggled so much with the jumper. I mean, under 18% on threes. And early in the season, he got off to a pretty chilly start. You could see teams going under screens and trying to take away drive lanes, and it was tough. And FSU was really, really struggling at the start of the year, but he's ended up shooting the ball much better. I mean, up to 70% from the line on a ton of volume, 37% on threes, just 20 makes, but all 20 of those have been assisted. So the catch and shoot three's been better. He's not 6'9", he's probably 6'6", but he has long arms.
He feels long. He feels tall.
But like I saw him before the Duke game last season standing next to John Butler, and there's just a funny comp in terms of height, but long arms. The jumper is up this season, and he's a good defender, and he's a burner in transition. I think he's been a decent switch defender, not like amazing at FSU. I think one of the reasons their downfall the last 2 seasons is they just don't have the same sort of like snap and communication level from some of those elite defenses from previous seasons. But he's an interesting wing prospect. Maybe a second round guy, maybe late first round, probably into the second though. But there's some interesting stuff to bet on because like he's really well liked. I asked Leonard Hamilton about him after the game this season. Like he constantly works. This is what Leonard was saying. He works. He's unfazed by the struggling. Like the guy comes in and just tries to help us win every day. That's like the upshot of what he said. He's shooting it better this season. And again, long arm defender who could do damage as a cut finisher. I think he's an underrated cutter and does some good stuff in transition too.
Yeah, he's definitely. This class is just too deep for me to peg him as a first rounder, but
yeah.
Especially now that I know he's not 6'9", like I thought he was.
Yeah,
but
I don't think so, man.
There's something there. So it'll be interesting to. Yeah. I wish that you're right. Like I wish this FSU team feels like a FSU team that was supposed to be in the oven for an hour and it got taken out after 20 minutes.
Yeah.
With him and Baba Miller, who are both a little bit of they theoretical FSU guys.
They need a point guard to like set things up, and they're playing Caleb Mills and Jalen Morley, who are like talented, but not really ready for the role. They're probably more combo guards. At least Mills at this point is.
Yeah. Speaking of point guards, that is the next kind of player I want to talk about, which is Judah Mintz in Syracuse, who he always on Twitter, his highlights would pop up every now and then. He's a fun player to watch, but also not through no fault of his own, because every clip is like someone playing 21 where it's you versus everybody else. And I haven't watched much Syracuse, but it seems like he doesn't have much help, and it seems like opposing defenses don't care about the other players on Syracuse. Yeah. So he's like athletic. He has a good assist to turnover rate, but he reminds me of Deuce McBride in that he does so, but he's not a conservative passer. He will flip one-handed passes across the court and stuff like that. He just happens to nail them all the time. So that's for like ball handling guards. That's one of the things I look for is randomly just like one-handed passes and the ability to take risks without kind of fumbling the bag. And then just in terms of like the main statistic of his that jumps out is his ability to get to the free throw line, especially for somebody who, he's not a big guy. He's what, like 6'2", 3?
Yeah, somewhere in there.
We've established that I'm terrible at guessing height from the television.
Right.
He seems pretty skinny as well. But unlike, say, Turk, who's also 6'2", 6'3", and skinny, this guy is like a missile, and he just loves the contact and leans
Yeah,
into it, and
yeah.
his jumper, like, I don't know. Sometimes I watch it and I'm like, man, that shit look ugly, and then other times I'm like, that was actually kind of clean. And I've had people say like, oh, I love his jumper, or other people be like,
Yeah.
I don't like his jumper, I don't trust it at all. So
Yeah.
I just don't know what to help. I mean, what to think. So this is why I have you here to help me
Yeah.
figure out
Yeah.
my feelings.
I mean, I think that's a good breakdown of him. The shot profile is interesting. It's a lot of unassisted makes from every level of the court. He shot poorly from three, but he shot it better on low volume throughout the season, but close to 50% on twos and probably 75% or somewhere around there have been unassisted, 62% at the rim with only 33% of those makes assisted. He shot decent from long two on good volume. He can get downhill in a bunch of different ways. It's mostly pick and roll and ISO. I think he does a nice job like sprinting into points and using triple handoffs to get downhill. Like he adds a little bit of spice to an offense that lacks zest otherwise. So Mintz, I like the fact that like you sort of noted something that I wanted to point out. He takes chances as a passer. And yeah, the context for him this year isn't great. Like he's got one guy that can roll hard, Jesse Edwards, but Edwards is not Derek Lively. I mean, he can play above the rim and catch and finish, but he's not that kind of like lob threat. There's not a ton of shooting around him, and there's no other sort of like tough guard to help create shots unless you think Joe Girard is worth much with his ability to shoot decently from long range, but. Mintz, I think because of the shot creation, the creativity as a passer, I think there's a lot of low-hanging fruit here for him, the ability to draw contact. I think he's an interesting like creator upside gamble for the 2023 draft. So I like Mintz a lot. The more I watch him, the more I like him too. It's just a weird context for him at Syracuse, surrounded by not much talent and having to play in that zone.
How is he in that zone? Because that should. I mean,
I think he's pretty good. I think he's pretty good in the zone. He gets a lot of steals, but like again, the zone tends to inflate that.
Is he like what? Do you know his wingspan? Like, is it? It
I don't
seems like a
know.
plus because he gets up there.
I don't know actually. And like again, he is wired to score too, but like I think like he's passed better than I thought he was going to heading into this season. So I'm intrigued. I think Mintz is like a pretty awesome prospect. But it's just tough to evaluate his defense right now, just given the what his role has been this season with their scheme.
Yeah, there's that, and then there's the layer of like the bar is always just so fucking high for guards who are not like above 6'5". Like every year, I'm like, put these 5 guards that I love into my first round, and then they all go in the second round, and I'm like, what is wrong with these people? And then I'm like, oh yeah, everybody in the NBA is 6'8" now.
Yeah.
So it's tough. Like you look at a guy like Deuce, guys off the Knicks like Jared Butler, and who I was a big fan of. Some of them still do fine. Like Deuce was playing impact minutes for a lot of the season for a good team, right? Like Trey Mann is another score first combo who he's not always playing, but I feel like he's actually made very sneaky strides in Oklahoma City on defense and with athleticism. So it just shows to go that like you can improve like Trey has and Deuce have, and that still may not be enough. So I'm excited about Mintz, but I always have to kind of throw some cold water on my guard evals these days. Sadly.
I feel that.
Cool. Well, those are mainly the guys I wanted to talk about. We're 90 minutes deep up in here, so thank you again, as always.
Yeah, for sure.
Really appreciate it. Love just hearing. I love hearing the I try to get people on the pod who have different perspectives on on scouting who enjoy this stuff. So like, the way you cover the AC, I have some people who like maybe they've seen prospects from a region in high school, or maybe it's the OG scouts like Rafael Barlow who are professionals who know how to do this, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Or maybe it's people who just love fucking with analytics a ton or whatever. So like I don't think there's anybody else I could get on here who could really break down what these ACC guys are seeing, and how their body language is being received, and different types of schemes they're used in. Because most of us by this point in the cycle have watched only one or two games, like a thorough watch, not a chilling on a happy hour watch, like I like to call it.
Yeah.
So every time you get on here to talk about ACC guys, I always get excited. So just
appreciate you having me on.
Appreciation, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much. It was a fun conversation.
Cool. Well, one more time, even though we have the at right here for the Spotify listeners, do you want to tell people where they can find you?
Yeah. At bgeis_bird, at bgeis_bird on Twitter. Lots of Hornets talk, draft talk, ACC basketball talk. Writing at Streaking the Lawn, SB Nation, 24/7 Sports, and then co-hosting the Buzzbeat podcast, which you can find on every podcast app, covering the Charlotte Hornets. And we're going to be doing a lot of draft stuff the next couple of months here for that as well.
Oh yeah, with that LaMelo injury, I know it's time to shift gears.
It's been time to shift gears, but yes, that was the nail. That was truly the nail in the coffin for the season here.
All right, dude. Yep. Thank you again. Listeners, thank you for tuning in. You know where you can find me at _Presidente on the strict.land. Go check out our draft stuff. We got some more articles coming. Go check out Draft Strickland, Pod Strickland. We got clothes. Go check out our merch. We got all types of shit. Go on there. Enjoy yourself. Come find me on Twitter. And on that note, have a good evening, everybody. Enjoy yourselves and get ready for some March Madness.